It is the end of 2025. It has now been over 2 years since I last produced a coffee hour. Given this is a new platform and account, I felt like it might be time to make another. And so, this shall be Coffee Hour The Dark Age, Episode 1. Coffee Hour was a meta-cast first created for my original YouTube account, Mancatcher, in 2010, and it functioned as a de facto blog and meta-cast, covering upcoming projects, current projects, hardware upgrades, research, and so on. When I dipped from YouTube a couple years later and moved on to dedicated hosting, Coffee Hour was eventually relaunched as Coffee Hour The Revenge, and both its scope and subject depth increased. Roughly 15 episodes were made for the original series, and I have 35 episodes for the website and FTP releases. This coffee hour is entirely unprecedented in that I have chosen to write a script for it, at least this one time. This is because all of my casting attempts for the project, which I've attempted throughout the year, always turn into long rants. Ranting is part and parcel of my productions, and I certainly have no few things to rant about, but I'd prefer at least the pilot production to remain fairly topical and concise, given the scope of the content it needs to cover. Using timestamps, I will section this production's discussions, but future Coffee Hour projects, should I choose to make any, will not likely resemble this formula in any shape or fashion. 2025 is almost over. As far as the 2020s have been concerned, it has been the least eventful year. This is a very good thing, all in all. Only a few hospitalizations and deaths or near deaths have occurred or been discovered throughout the year, and other than the antihistamine mega palpitation incident, my health has remained acceptably stable this year. Through this production, I will discuss some of my work I've done this year, which won't seem like much, but it is an improvement over 2024. This is in part due to decoupling from malicious individuals, the weather being more temperate, and focusing primarily on playing games rather than making them. This means that video production has increased from the last couple years, and even new LPs have been produced or are being produced. In a manner, the disaster of 2024 has been reversed somewhat, and we are back where we were at 2023. Unfortunately, 2025 will end on an extremely dark note. One of the 4 people I know in real life is about to die. Much like many similar deaths in the last few years, his diagnosis came immediately after turning his life around for the better. The circle of acquaintances I knew IRL or online to any reasonable degree has shrunk by over half from fatalities since 2023, and pretty much every animal involved in those circles has also died in the last 5 years. Everyone remaining around me, including myself, are on the very edge of life. Every projection I make, everything I am to discuss hereon, is colored by that reality. It's not about what I will do, what I want to do, but what I hope I can try to do, given the time and mental fortitude I have left. In 2025, I completed an important project that came as a result of a unification of project concepts that begun at the start of the year. The 23 years reflection video, Age of Decay, took about a week start to finish to create, though it was wildly unstructured and doesn't touch on many important subjects like my battle with CTS and arthritis that started with Black Sun due to 3ds Max usage, or the Neverwinter Nights 2 project that was killed by the editor corrupting all my work. Nonetheless, it is a conglomeration of ideas that took flight when I discovered I couldn't upload my 2015 Armageddon Onslaught demo because YouTube hates fun. This and similar projects are part of an effort to document my work for when I am dead. They are presented publicly by virtue of having nowhere else to put them after DreamHost rug pulled us in 2021. In 2025, I also begun work on 2 major video projects that have since been largely scrapped or otherwise pending major revision, but I decided to take a break from. The first is a D&D Reflections video, which is more of a technical discussion than the others, and will go through many of my asset creation pipelines, homebrew systems, and experiences therein. The main reason I haven't released what I have built yet is because it contains a lot of spoilers for my current campaign I forgot to remove, and I haven't felt like editing it yet. The second production is a long-alluded aesthetic and design discussion for ApexX, but with ApexX's cancellation, there's not much drive to finish it at this time, as I'm still lacking a concrete goal for the overworld design. But I'll discuss that more in depth in a little bit. The most significant scale of video work this year was Naraka videos. I recorded Naraka since my account first hit level 25 a little over a year ago, and after I started playing games with players more regularly and successfully, I began to publicate uploads. As of the time of this writing, I have 1,350 hours in Naraka, and I've completely quit ranked solos and rarely sign on just to collect dailies, sometimes playing quick match once or twice. I think my duos partner may have also crashed out, as I haven't heard much from him for a while. HKS still signs on and plays more regularly than both of us, but I think we're all burned out from being endlessly farmed by people on 4-year-old accounts with X3D processors and sub 50 ping, or the exact same people running Smurf accounts, boosting them because there's no moderation. Naraka is a very frustrating and time-consuming game with an extremely small and gate-kept player base that has made it difficult for me to learn how to improve, if not outright mislead me, and only through Dale Deer, Mucky, Lab Nebula, and Immortal did I start to understand that spamming games is precisely why my skill level hasn't improved at all throughout the year. It will probably be a while until I start regularly playing again, and I'll be focusing on customs and then duos and trios, but when I do so, I'll be ready to produce and present more videos. I'm actively looking for coaching opportunities, but I'm not paying you, much less paying enterprise contract fees that some lunatics in North America have convinced themselves they have any right asking for. We completed a Neo co-op run all the way up until the final zone, where the non-existent checkpoint system in co-op made the extremely high lethality of arena-wide grabs and inconsistent collision and agonizing boss gauntlet design too frustrating to continue. I'll likely look to finish the game in solo in the near future, perhaps 2026. We tried to start Neo 2, but the game is ridiculously unstable and will crash my GPU constantly, rolling back my account every single time, and I'll lose everything I had done in or out of a zone, including items, quest progression, leveling, and so on. It's basically impossible to progress in the game because the zones are much longer than Neo 1. So I've abandoned it for the time being, as many efforts to fix it haven't had any success. I still need to test capping the FPS at 60, but I doubt it will fix this. I also started Wu Chang, but it got crowded out by other works, so it will also probably be finished in 2026. The Neo run is extremely silly, and many bugs bring me to tears, and Wu Chang is an amazing example of how bad development practices can make even the excellent performance of Unreal Engine 5 look no different than Unity. I've researched a tool called Lossless Video Cutter with the goal of creating supercuts suitable for YouTube, but it corrupts the resulting video, as you saw with my Wu Chang test. I honestly don't even know how that's possible, but they achieved it. I don't have the patience or time to manually cut them myself, so I won't be pursuing that idea any further. I looked into several other games and projects, such as the embarrassing Genshin clone called Where Winds Meet, and I have produced RimWorld videos and streamed Naraka, Noida, Elite Dangerous, and other games. I also temporarily revisited Epic 7 to review the train wreck it had become, and released small projects for FGO and Arknights. I've affirmed the conclusion that I'm not fond of streaming, that it doesn't fit my casting style, vocabulary, or subject matter, but I don't mind streaming some form of game development, which I did more so last year than this one. In 2025, I toned down my streaming hours, and in 2026, I will tone it down even more, if not abandon it entirely again, focusing more on video content once again, public or otherwise. To that end, I've experimented somewhat with virtual puppetry, more commonly called by men as VTubing. The goal was to produce something I could use in lieu of an idle desktop during long, non-premeditated productions, for example, development discussions or the old coffee hours. So this was just something I wanted to experiment with, and since I hadn't been able to spend my own money for a very, very long time now, I had a just a curiosity of trying something out. So I kind of followed HKS's footsteps. HKS is a VTuber. It took about a day to set up and learn a few odds and ends. I'm using HKS's software he built for this purpose, though currently I'm not using any of the Twitch integration he set up, especially since I'm not an affiliate. This is just an experiment to be used sparingly if I choose to pursue it at all. What forms it may take, or what productions I choose to use it for, are all things I've been considering for a very long time, especially if I choose to push more of my work to YouTube in the future. The short of the story is that I talked to a few people who do virtual puppetry, and one of them, as of a few years ago, last when I checked, has over 600,000 subscribers on YouTube. My many discussions with her have been presented in previous productions, but I've never quite understood what the draw of VTubing or similar content really is. And often, when I don't really understand something, I try to interact with it to understand it. Well, most of the time, it seems like a way for men to become anime girls like they always wanted. I think there is some degree of contribution the practice could offer to a discussion presentation. I am an animate person, and it's possible that animation could lend to the sensation of humor in certain circumstances. For example, but my setup is fickle due to my compression gloves and lighting, and I'm not about to invest 20 years of non-existent savings into buying an Apple product. Even so, my initial experiments are indeed silly. What will become of this? Maybe nothing. Maybe something even sillier. Only time will tell. Currently, my experiment doesn't show much animation, and my current method for processing the tracking data needs some refinement. But the software HKS has built is extremely powerful since it's built on Unreal, and it's also highly performant. I can use it with effectively anything. Something else I thought I'd mention is I am aware that the 2 Time Splitters Rewind videos I have uploaded appear to have some very strange corruption on YouTube, where it is skipping portions of the video. I have had this problem in the past, but only with very specific browsers. But I've done some research, and it's definitely fucked in basically everything. I am not sure why. So I'm going to re-encode them in something different, and there'll probably be some quality loss, but I'll probably just stick up re-uploads at some point that are hopefully not broken. Yeah, I don't know either. YouTube, just another reason why I hate putting content on this platform. ApexX saw about a week of development time placed into it within the first quarter of the year. That's when I built the randomizer experiment, for whom I made a demonstration video a few months ago. Since then, I've committed to not touching the project again until I have a strong goal for both the player character model and the so-called overworld design. Over the years, I have contemplated making a simple FPS to sell, so I could reclaim some of the investment made into this project's asset over the years, and also pay HKS back for hardware if I ever saw any reasonable return. I have a fairly strong concept, I'd say roughly 60% fleshed out in my head, that I'll likely make some effort to attempt start work on in 2026. This will be a mix of Perfect Dark and early Doom or Quake with some influences from Counter-Strike. In other words, an arcade-style shooter and likely exclusively single-player. It's the nature of how zone progression will function in single-player, and if I want to add any roguelike elements or keep it entirely linear, then I haven't figured out yet. I have most of the assets I can need for the project, though it will be my first foray into FPS game development at this depth. I can reuse all the systems I made for ApexX, and the inverse is true as well. I have more hard drives nearing the end of reasonable runtime life, and I desperately need to upgrade and replace fans in both my room and in the computer case. But the cost of that hardware is much too monstrous to consider, and I have waited for years to luck upon a reasonable plateau where I can perform this maintenance and not annihilate my tiny little bit of finances. It's not going to happen. Groceries are flying in cost, and the death inflation of this country will never stop. I don't like thinking about the future in any respect, but it's clear I'll never become an artist, and I'll never figure out ApexX at my current pace. I need to change that pace and try something else, even if it ultimately never gets finished or released anyways. The only path is forward, and I need to try everything if I am to get back to where I want to be mentally. I will discuss both projects in depth in later videos. I fooled around a bit with Suno AI using money I had otherwise reserved for Naraka. While what I produced had some degree of intrigue, it seems that the Suno platform is about to torpedo its business and destroy itself, so this experiment will end soon. I'd like to look into AI-generated video production, but it's still in its infancy. Animating images is said to be quite difficult on AMD hardware, if not impossible, and almost all the pipelines are built for comfy for some reason. Since my current setup is working brilliantly and very fast, I'd rather not touch anything that stands to break that environment. But I would also like to see if I can create looping animations, both for D&D and for video production. Free samples on sites like Grok aren't really that promising at all, but plenty of recent Kanye West video covers have given me hope that there's secret sauce hiding around waiting to be discovered and utilized. I love seeing the odd person whine about AI. It's so hopelessly bad and so many years from being commercially viable for any sensible person. But the odd person loses their shit and goes on a deranged spurg out, and it's always the failed artists that do it. Somehow they just can't accept the fact that, just like me, they need to adapt and take advantage of any tool they can find. That's honestly one of the things that keep me interested in the subject, even though all arms of it have been dead in the water for a while now, mostly due to corporate greed, of course. Apart from attempting to launch the aforementioned FPS project, I'll likely continue some degree of Naraka casting. I'll continue work on those recordings, and I'll reattempt Neo 2, although I don't hold any expectations for it. I don't foresee doing any new LPs next year. But I didn't foresee doing Wu Chang this year either, so you never know. I'll definitely be doing a downspin of my streaming hours, not that I've done that much, but what I've done I never really felt that excited about. And I might look into other projects. However, real life is probably going to take a huge down spiral, so it's hard to imagine things getting worse, but they are getting worse each and every single day. It's enough just to try to slow the descent. But the years are racking up, and things are getting to be quite serious. Well, they've been serious for a long time. So I don't hold any expectations whatsoever. Just while I did my first editing pass on this coffee hour, I was thrust into a multi-day dementia insanity escapade, complete with flooding, with hospital visits, and with absolute delirium and confusion all abound. But I learned a valuable piece of information during this trial, and that is, God does not accept people who are autistic. So there you have it. Straight from the mouth herself, the most pious of individuals has enlightened me that all autists go to hole. In the coming year, I would like to get back to making some Naraka content. I actually played some customs with Mucky today, and now both of us are pretty rusty, but we'll probably look at doing some duos or trios or something like that eventually at some point. This season's kind of lame, to be honest. Of course, there's the FPS prototype that I would like to launch in 2026. I don't know how much I'll actually discuss or show about that, because it really all depends on what I feel comfortable showing for something I intend to actually sell, and what is actually worth showing. I would like to finish several LP projects that were started at some points. I just tested Neo 2 with 60 FPS and new drivers, and it still crashes, so that's dead. But I'll look to finish Wu Chang and Armored Core 6. I hope. I hope. And I'll continue recording Rim Job World for the boys, too. For YouTube, we'll be looking at going to my other D&D projects and making summary videos for those, just like I did for Autumn Wind. Now, the Stars Run main campaign is still in progress, so what I talk about and show in such a video has to be very carefully considered. It's also up to like 100 160 something sessions right now. So that's... There's going to be a cutoff between what I can really talk about or show even as a demonstration. I've already made summary videos for it, so I can, you know, kind of condense all that to something major. But that's going to take some time to research and build all the content for. Remember, the Autumn Wind video, that 5-hour or whatever video it was, had like over 2,000 individual screenshots built for it, not including all the other content. So it actually turned into a lot more work than I really expected. But I would be coming into this with a little bit more information. So chances are do the Albion one first. That's 3 short adventures. I think it's about 26 sessions in total. So that would be a fairly small one to do. Nice little island, little project to get us back into the process again. So both of those would be jumped onto YouTube for those of you who like the D&D content. Of course, there's a major D&D Reflections video that I mentioned earlier. And then there's the ApexX aesthetic and design discussion. These times are based on what I have currently edited, so chances are when they're actually built into something more production and presentation worthy, they'll be a little bit larger. Beyond that, I don't know. I don't offer any expectations, any projections whatsoever, because it's a terrible idea to do so. Things are just so fucked right now. It's just best not to give real projections. So that's it for our coffee hour. I'm trying to keep it short and sweet as our pilot episode. We'd like to perhaps get to more lengthier discussions and things like that in the future, but for the time being, I like to keep it short and sweet. I might actually pull for a project or video ideas in the future, but for the time being, I'm just trying to stop my hair from randomly catching on fire, which is enough in itself. There's always, of course, a spattering of smaller projects that make it to YouTube over time, like the Arc Knights, FGO, and other phone shit that I sometimes record. That will probably continue on and off. It's not really a big thing, I don't think, so it's not really a priority of mine, but... You know, whenever the opportunity presents itself, it's kind of like, oh, this might make an interesting recording. That's kind of how I've treated the whole channel, to be honest. And it's likely how I'll continue to treat it until such a day should come as we actually have proper hosting once again. It won't happen, though. LOL XD. So, smoke weed every day.